In the 41st millennium, there is only war. The Imperium of Man spans 1,000,000 worlds, each one a testament to humanity's stubborn refusal to die in a galaxy that hungers for extinction. Faith is armor, ignorance is bliss, and when something falls from the stars that defies all known categories of threat, Xenos, heretic, demon, the Imperium's first instinct is always the same: contain, interrogate, and, if necessary, annihilate. But some things cannot be so easily destroyed. The forge world of Metallicus 7 hung in the void like a blighted jewel, its surface a labyrinth of manufactororums, plasma refineries, and cathedral forges that churned out weapons for the Emperor's endless wars. Tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus performed their sacred rituals, chanting binary hymns as they coaxed machine spirits into compliance. The air reeked of promethium, ozone, and sanctified oil. This was a world where flesh was weakness and steel was salvation. At 0447 hours local standard time, the auger arrays detected an anomaly. Not a ship, not a meteor, something that registered on every spectrum simultaneously. Gravitational distortion, electromagnetic surge, a psychic scream that made Navigator Primus Kellion vomit blood in his sanctum 3 kilometers below the surface. The object punched through the upper atmosphere at impossible velocity, trailing fire that burned black and violet, colors that should not exist in real-time space. It struck the northern Manufactorum district with the force of an orbital lance strike. Magos Dominus Hexirion Kale arrived at the impact site within 17 minutes. His Cataphron destroyers forming a perimeter around the crater, while Skitarii Rangers swept the periphery with galvanic rifles. The crater itself was a wound in the planet's surface, approximately 47 meters in diameter, still glowing with residual heat that made the air shimmer and warp. At the center lay a figure, humanoid, approximately 2.03 meters in height, encased in black armor of unknown composition that bore no resemblance to any STC pattern in the Mechanicus archives. Smoke rose from the figure's shoulders and joints, and the faint hiss of escaping gases suggested a self-contained life support system. One arm was outstretched, fingers still curled as if grasping for something lost. Biologist scan, Hexirion Kale voxed. His mechadendrites whirred as they extended, sensor arrays focusing on the fallen stranger. Organic components detected beneath armor shell, humanoid baseline, but Magos, the internal architecture is wrong. Extensive cybernetic integration, but not of Imperial origin, Xenos technology, possibly heretic. Life signs? A pause. Affirmative. Respiratory function detected. Cardiac equivalent unclear. The armor appears to be sustaining biological functions through artificial means.
Hexirion Kale's optical implants zoomed in on the figure's helmet. A black mask with a triangular grille and large insectoid eye lenses that reflected the firelight. It was a face designed to inspire fear, he noted. Psychological warfare through aesthetics. Crude but potentially effective against unaugmented minds. Retrieve the specimen, he commanded. Transport to Containment Sanctum Theta 9. Full quarantine protocols. I want every scanning ritual performed before it regains consciousness. The cataphrons moved forward, their heavy servo arms reaching for the armored figure. The moment they made contact, the stranger's hand twitched. Every Skitari in the perimeter raised their weapons. The figure's chest rose with a deep, mechanical breath, a rhythmic hiss-rasp that echoed across the crater. Slowly, impossibly, the armored warrior began to rise, not standing, not moving its legs, rising, levitating half a meter off the ground as if gravity itself had loosened its grip. "Impossible," Hexerian Kale whispered through his Vox grill. "Anti-gravitic suspension without visible projection apparatus. This violates..." The figure's head turned toward him with mechanical precision. Behind the black lenses, something burned. Not the red glow of targeting augmetics, something else, something aware. Then it spoke. The voice was a deep, mechanical rasp, filtered through the helmet's vocabulator. "Where am I?" High Gothic. The stranger spoke High Gothic with an accent Hexerian Kale's linguistic processors couldn't place. Archaic, pre-unification era patterns mixed with phonemes that had no basis in human language evolution. "You are on Metallica Vi, Furge world of the Adeptus Mechanicus, loyal servant of the God Emperor of mankind." Hexerian Kale responded, his weapons platform chassis adjusting its stance. The figure remained suspended in the air, its breathing the only sound, that terrible rhythmic hiss-rasp. Then, with a gesture almost contemptuous in its casualness, it extended one hand.
Hexerian Kale felt pressure around his throat. Invisible, impossible. His self-preservation protocols screamed as his vocal synthesizer was crushed inward, air supply to his remaining biological components severed. He clawed at his neck with both hands and mechadendrites, but there was nothing there, nothing physical. Witchery. Psychic assault. "You will not threaten me," the figure said, lowering to the ground. The pressure on Hexerian Kale's throat eased, and he gasped, biological lungs burning. "I am Lord Vader. I seek information, not conflict, but I will defend myself." The Skitari opened fire. 30 galvanic rifles discharged simultaneously, their electrically charged rounds crossing the distance in microseconds. The stranger raised one hand, and the rounds stopped, simply stopped, hovering in mid-air as if time itself had frozen around them. With a flick of his wrist, the stranger sent the rounds spinning back toward their sources. 3 Skitari collapsed, their own ammunition punching through their armor. Hexerian Kale activated the Vox Network priority channel. "This is Magos Dominus Hexerian Kale, to Planetary Defense Command. Psycho-level threat detected at impact site coordinates. Request inquisitorial intervention. Subject displays telekinetic abilities beyond sanctioned Imperial Psycho classifications. Threat level, extremis." The armored figure, Lord Vader, he'd called himself, surveyed the scene with mechanical calm. His breathing continued its rhythmic pattern, and despite the violence of the past 30 seconds, his posture suggested complete control. No panic, no rage, just cold professional assessment of the situation.
I did not come here by choice. I was thrown from my path. I require information about this world and transportation. Provide this, and I will leave peacefully." "You are a witch," Hexerian Kale rasped, his vocal synthesizer rebooting. "An unsanctioned psyker. Under Imperial law, you are subject to immediate containment or execution. There will be no negotiation." Vader's head tilted slightly, and though his expression was hidden behind the mask, Hexerian Kale detected something in his posture that his tactical algorithms identified as amusement. "I have killed more powerful men than you for far less provocation, but I am not your enemy. Not yet." In the distance, the howl of inquisitorial Valkyries cut through the air. They were coming. And when the Inquisition arrived, Hexerian Kale knew there would be only two outcomes: submission or death. The stranger called Vader looked up at the approaching aircraft, then back at the Magos. Behind his mask, those burning eyes seemed to assess, calculate, and ultimately dismiss the threat. "Very well," Vader said. "I will hear what your inquisitors have to say." He did not lower his hand. He did not stand down. He simply waited, a dark monument of black armor and mechanical breathing, as the forces of the Imperium descended upon him. And in that moment, Hexerian Kale understood with perfect algorithmic clarity. This was not a prisoner being captured. This was a predator allowing itself to be studied. The distinction, he suspected, would prove catastrophic. The inquisitorial fortress monastery of St. Macarius dominated the western plateau of Metallica 7 like a cancerous growth of adamantium and faith. Its spires reached toward the smog-choked sky, each one topped with surveillance augers and anti-aircraft batteries. Within its walls, the Ordo Xenos maintained interrogation chambers, containment cells, and execution yards where threats to humanity were processed with ruthless efficiency. In Containment Cell Sigma 13, 7 levels below the surface, Darth Vader stood motionless. They had not bothered with restraints. The Inquisitor, a woman named Covenant, her face a mask of burn scars and augmetic implants, had quickly realized that conventional shackles were meaningless against telekinetic power. Instead, the cell was a cube of black stone, a rare psychic null material that dampened warp energies. 6 Kulexus assassins stood in the observation gallery above, their sole horror presence creating a dead zone that made even the most powerful psychers weep and convulse. Darth Vader felt their presence like pressure against his consciousness. The Force, what these people seemed to call the warp, was harder to grasp here. It slipped through his mental fingers like oil, contaminated and resistant. Each breath was labor. Each heartbeat was sustained only by the emergency reserves of his armor's medical systems. The damage from the dimensional transit had been worse than he'd initially calculated. His primary respirator was cycling at 63% efficiency. The neural interface connecting his cybernetic limbs to his remaining biological nervous system was degrading. He estimated 48 hours before catastrophic system failure without maintenance.
he would need to negotiate. The thought was bitter. The cell door opened with a pneumatic hiss. Inquisitor Covenant entered, followed by a tech priest whose robes were midnight blue instead of the traditional red. A Magos Biologicus, Vader's tactical assessment concluded. The specialist in flesh rather than steel. Lord Vader, Inquisitor Covenant said, her voice processed through a Vox unit embedded in her throat. Half her jaw was missing, replaced with a grill that gave her words a metallic rasp not unlike his own. An interesting title. Lord suggests nobility, authority. Yet you arrive on an imperial world alone, wounded, with technology that bears no resemblance to any human civilization in recorded history.
Vader said nothing. He had learned long ago that silence could be as effective as words. Covenant circled him slowly, her power-armored boots clicking against the black stone floor. My colleague, Magos biologist Septimus Kane, has examined the sensor data from your arrival. Your armor contains your organs. Your legs are mechanical. Your arms are prosthetics of extraordinary sophistication. You are, essentially, a corpse kept animate through technological intervention. As are many of your servants, Vader observed, his vocabulator giving his words a cold precision. Your Skitarii, your tech priests, even you, Inquisitor. I count 17 augmetic components in your body. We are not so different. Covenant's remaining eye, a pale blue bionic that tracked with mechanical precision, narrowed. The difference, Lord Vader, is that our augmentation serves the Emperor. Our flesh is sacrificed in his name. You serve what? Yourself? I serve the Empire, or I did, until I was torn from my reality and thrown into yours. Elaborate. Vader tilted his head slightly, a gesture that suggested consideration. In truth, he was testing the limits of the Blackstone's suppression. The Force was there, just beyond reach, like a limb that had fallen asleep. He could feel it, but not grasp it, not yet. I was Supreme Commander of the Imperial Military. I served an emperor who united a galaxy under a single rule. I hunted rebels, eliminated insurgents, and ensured order through strength. During a hyperspace transit, my ship encountered an anomaly, a rift in space itself. I was ejected. Hyperspace, Magos Septimus Kane interjected, his voice a cascade of binary chirps overlaid with mechanical high Gothic. This term is unknown. Elaborate on the mechanism. A dimension parallel to real space, faster than light travel, by transitioning through an alternate layer of reality. The Magos's medendrites quivered with what might have been excitement. A controlled navigation of the immaterium, fascinating and heretical. Such knowledge was lost in the dark age of technology. To claim possession of it suggests either Xenos origin or he's lying, which is far more likely. She stepped directly in front of Vader, close enough that he could see the micro-servos in her bionic eye adjusting focus. She raised one finger. First, you are a Xenos, possibly a shapeshifter, infiltrating Imperial space. A second finger. Second, you are a heretic, a fallen tech priest who has delved into forbidden technologies and been corrupted by the warp. A third finger. Third, you are a pawn of the ruinous powers sent to sow discord and corruption on a forge world vital to the Imperium's war effort. Vader's breathing continued its mechanical rhythm. I am none of those things. Then what are you? A warrior, nothing more, nothing less. Covenant studied him for a long moment. Then she gestured, and a hololithic projector descended from the ceiling, casting a flickering image into the air between them. It showed Vader's arrival, the impact, the levitation, the redirection of galvanic rounds. The image froze on a single frame. Vader's hand extended, crackling with invisible power. This, Covenant said, is Psyker-class telekinesis. In the Imperium, such abilities manifest only in those touched by the warp, the Immaterium, the domain of chaos. Psykers are either sanctioned and soul-bound to the Emperor, or they are executed. There are no exceptions. Then your Imperium is wasteful, Vader said. Psychic potential is a tool. To destroy it rather than harness it is the act of cowards. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Covenant's hand moved to the bolt pistol at her hip, but she did not draw it yet. Careful, Lord Vader. You stand in the heart of an inquisitorial fortress, surrounded by warriors who have killed things far more dangerous than you. Your powers are suppressed. Your armor is failing. You have no leverage. I have knowledge, Vader countered. Your Magos is already salivating at the prospect of understanding my technology, and I suspect your Imperium is not in a position to refuse potential assets, no matter how unorthodox. Septimus Kane's optical implants brightened. The specimen makes a valid point, Inquisitor. His cybernetic integration is centuries beyond current Mechanicus doctrine. If we could reverse engineer even a fraction of his life support systems, at what cost? Souls? Corruption? How many tech priests will you sacrifice to demons when they attempt to comprehend technology that may be warp-tainted? My technology is not tainted, Vader said, his voice hard. It is science, engineering. The power I wield is not your warp. It is something else. Something cleaner. There is no clean in this galaxy. Everything is either loyal to the Emperor or it serves chaos. There is no third option. Vader felt a stirring then, not the Force, but something else. A presence at the edge of his awareness, dark, hungry, familiar in its malevolence, but alien in its nature. He had felt it since arriving in this reality, a constant pressure like the ocean depths pressing against his consciousness. What is chaos? He asked. The question seemed to surprise Covenant. She exchanged a glance with Septimus Kane, then looked back at Vader with something that might have been suspicion or concern. You don't know? Explain it to me. Covenant was silent for a moment, then gestured for the Magos to leave. He complied, though his reluctance was evident in the sluggish movement of his mechadendrites.
Once the door sealed behind him, Covenant spoke in a quieter voice, almost confidential. The warp is the immaterium, a dimension of psychic energy that underlies real space. It is the domain of the ruinous powers, four gods of chaos who feed on emotion, thought, and suffering. They are Korn, the blood god, Tzinch, the changer of ways, Nurgle, the plague father, Slanesh, the prince of excess. They are damnation given form, and they hunger for the souls of all living beings. Vader absorbed this information with cold calculation. Gods, not metaphorical gods, but actual entities that fed on mortal consciousness. This was worse than the Sith teachings of the dark side, far worse. "And your emperor?" he asked. "The God Emperor of mankind," Covenant said, and for the first time her voice carried something other than suspicion, reverence, fierce and unyielding. "He sits upon the golden throne on Holy Terra, a beacon of light in the darkness. For 10,000 years he has held back the warp, protected humanity from extinction. He is our faith, our salvation, our only hope." "A corpse on a throne," Vader said quietly, recognizing the signs of a failing ruler sustained by machinery. "Like me." Covenant's hand went to her bolt pistol, and this time she drew it. "You will not speak blasphemy in my presence." "It was not blasphemy. It was observation. You call me a threat, Inquisitor, but I have heard nothing from you that suggests I am your enemy. I do not serve your chaos gods. I do not seek to harm your Imperium. I merely wish to understand where I am and how to survive." "Survival," Covenant repeated, holstering her pistol slowly. "In the 41st millennium, survival is the only currency that matters." "Very well, Lord Vader. You want to survive? Then you will cooperate. You will submit to full examination by the Adeptus Mechanicus. You will allow us to study your technology, your abilities, and your origins. In exchange, we will repair your life support systems and determine whether you can be useful."
"And if I refuse? Then the Q-Lexus assassins will enter this cell, and you will die screaming as your soul is torn from your body and fed to the warp, assuming the Blackstone doesn't kill you first when your armor fails." Vader considered his options. His respirator was failing. The Force was suppressed. He was alone on an alien world, surrounded by zealots who worshipped a dying god and viewed him as a potential heretic. The Empire, his empire, was gone. Palpatine was gone. Luke was gone. Everything he had known, everything he had fought for, was in another reality entirely. For the first time since Mustafar, Darth Vader felt something close to fear. But fear was useful. Fear was focus. "I will cooperate," he said, "for now." Covenant nodded. A wise choice. Magos Septimus Cain will begin repairs on your systems within the hour. You will be monitored at all times. Any sign of treachery, any hint of corruption, and this alliance ends. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "One more thing, Lord Vader. You asked what chaos is. Let me tell you what it truly means. It is the inevitable fate of those who believe themselves strong enough to stand alone. Chaos offers power, freedom, and the fulfillment of every dark desire. And it will whisper to you. In your dreams, in your moments of weakness, it will promise you everything you've lost. A remaining eye locked onto his mask. And when it does, I will be watching, because the question is not whether chaos will tempt you, Lord Vader. The question is whether you are strong enough to refuse. The door sealed behind her with a finality that echoed in the black stone chamber. Vader stood alone in the silence, his breathing the only sound. And in that silence, he felt it. A whisper at the edge of his consciousness. Not the Force, something else. Something that knew his name. Something that recognized his pain. The warp was watching, and it was hungry.
The repair bay of St. Macarius Fortress was a cathedral of flesh and steel, where the Adeptus Mechanicus performed their sacred rites of technological communion. Servo skulls drifted through clouds of incense smoke, their empty eye sockets glowing with recording augurs. Somewhere in the depths, a choir of servitors chanted binary hymns while their lobotomized grains processed data streams too complex for unaugmented human comprehension. Darth Vader stood in the center of the sanctum, stripped of his chestplate and helmet for the first time since his arrival. Magos Biologus Septimus Cain and his retinue of lesser tech priests surrounded him like priests before an altar, their mechadodrins probing the exposed machinery of his life support systems with reverence and horror in equal measure. "Blasphemy," one tech priest whispered, his vocal synthesizer crackling with static. "Blessed circuits interwoven with corrupted flesh, machine spirits enslaved to biological tyranny." "Silence," Septimus Cain commanded. His own mechadodrins extended, their tips glowing with scanning beams that swept across Vader's exposed mechanics with reverence and horror in equal measure. "The damage is extensive," Septimus Cain announced, his optical arrays zooming in on Vader's internal systems. Primary respirator functioning at 51% efficiency. Neural interface showing cascade degradation. Cardiac regulator approaching critical failure. Without immediate intervention, biological termination will occur within 32.4 hours. "Then repair it," Inquisitor Covenant ordered from the observation gallery above. She had not left since the examination began 3 hours ago, her augmatic eye tracking Vader's every movement. "It is not so simple," Septimus Cain gestured, and a hololithic display materialized, showing the intricate web of Vader's cybernetics. His systems are integrated at a level that approaches tech heresy. Machine and flesh are not merely connected, they are symbiotic. To repair one requires understanding both, and his technology operates on principles that violate several fundamental doctrines of the cult Mechanicus. "Explain," Inquisitor Covenant demanded. "His systems do not contain machine spirits. They are purely mechanical. No prayers required, no rituals, no appeasement of the Omnisea's divine algorithms. They simply function, as if the machine requires no soul to operate." The other tech priests made the sign of the cog,
their mechadodrins recoiling slightly. Such concepts bordered on the most dangerous heresies, the suggestion that machines could exist without the divine spark of the machine god. "Can you repair him or not?" Inquisitor Covenant pressed. Septimus Cain's optical arrays dimmed momentarily, the tech priest equivalent of a grimace. "Yes, but it will require improvisation. We must adapt Imperial components to alien architecture. The risk of catastrophic failure is significant." "Then begin," Vader said, his unfiltered voice a wet rasp that made several tech priests flinch. "Incompetent." Septimus Cain's mechadodrin stiffened. "I am a Magos Biologus of Mars itself, keeper of sacred knowledge that predates your—"
"You are a priest who worships machines you barely understand," Vader interrupted, meeting the Magos' optical arrays with his damaged eyes. "I have rebuilt star destroyers with lesser resources. I have maintained fleets across a galaxy. If your faith prohibits competence, step aside and let me do it myself." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the servitor choir seemed to pause in its chanting. Then Septimus Cain did something unexpected. He laughed, a sound like grinding gears overlaid with digital static. "Arrogance," the Magos said. "Magnificent arrogance. Very well, Lord Vader. Since you claim such expertise, you will guide the repairs. Explain your systems, teach us your heretical knowledge, and we shall see if your flesh-bound confidence matches your words." For the next 6 hours, Vader did exactly that. He spoke in precise technical language, describing the function of each component, the logic gates that governed his respiratory system, the power distribution network that sustained his mechanical limbs. The tech priests listened with growing fascination, their initial horror slowly transforming into something approaching religious ecstasy. Here was knowledge from beyond the Imperium's borders, technology that functioned without prayer or ritual, machines that obeyed logic rather than faith. It was heresy. It was also undeniably effective. Septimus Cain worked with surprising skill once freed from his religious constraints, his mechadendrites wielding plasma cutters and micro-welders with surgical precision. Imperial components were adapted, rewired, and integrated. A plasma core from a Skitarii power pack replaced Vader's damaged primary cell. Neural relays were reinforced with blessed circuitry. His respirator was rebuilt using components from a Space Marine's power armor life support system. "Functional," Septimus Cain announced finally, stepping back to admire their work. "Crude, inefficient, but functional. Your respiratory capacity should be restored to 78% of optimal." Vader inhaled deeply, feeling the familiar rhythm return. The hiss-rasp of his breathing steadied, strengthened. His chest plate was reattached, the seals engaging with pneumatic finality. His helmet lowered back into place, and the world resolved into the familiar red-tinted clarity of his optical sensors. "Adequate," Vader said, flexing his mechanical fingers. "You have my gratitude, Magos." "Gratitude is unnecessary," Septimus Cain replied, though his optical arrays brightened slightly. "Knowledge is the only payment required.
I have learned much from this heretical communion.
From the observation gallery, Inquisitor Covenant's voice cut through the moment. The repairs are complete. Lord Vader, you will return to your cell. The Magos will compile his findings for review by the Ordo Xenos. We will determine your fate within 48 hours. Vader turned toward the gallery, and even without seeing his face, his posture radiated refusal. No. Covenant's hand moved to her bolt pistol. That was not a request. Neither was my refusal. Vader took a step forward, and those 6 Skitarii Rangers immediately raised their galvanic rifles. He did not slow. I have cooperated. I have shared knowledge. I have allowed your priests to dissect my systems and rebuild me with your inferior components. But I am not your prisoner, Inquisitor. I am your guest. There is a difference. The only difference, Covenant said coldly, is that guests can be escorted out. Prisoners are dragged. Vader reached out with the Force and felt it respond. Not fully, not with the clarity and power he once commanded, but it was there, accessible despite the black stone walls. The repairs had done more than restore his life support. They had given him strength, and with strength came options. You can try, Vader said quietly. The Skitarii opened fire. Vader raised one hand and the Force surged. The galvanic rounds froze mid-flight, crackling with electrical discharge as they hung suspended in the air. With a thought, Vader sent them spinning into the walls, where they exploded in showers of sparks. The Skitarii staggered back, their targeting protocols unable to compensate for telekinetic deflection. "Stand down," Covenant commanded, but her voice carried uncertainty now. She had seen the reports, she had watched the footage, but seeing Vader's power in person, feeling the pressure of his will pressing against reality itself, was different. Vader did not attack. He simply stood, one hand extended, radiating controlled menace. "I am leaving. I will take a ship, supplies and navigation data. In exchange, I will leave this world intact and your people alive. Refuse, and I will tear this fortress apart stone by stone until I find what I need." "You are one man," Covenant said, though her hand remained on her bolt pistol. "We are the Imperium. We have armies, fleets, weapons that can crack planets. You cannot win. I have destroyed armies. I have commanded fleets, and I have cracked planets when necessary. Do not test me, Inquisitor. You will not enjoy the outcome." For a long moment, the two regarded each other across the repair bay, the scarred Inquisitor and the Dark Lord, each measuring the other's resolve. Then a new voice spoke, cutting through the tension like a knife through flesh. "Perhaps there is another way." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It echoed in Vader's mind, whispered in the corners of the repair bay, slithered through the Vox network like a serpent through tall grass. The tech priests recoiled, their mechadendrite spasming. Inquisitor Covenant drew her bolt pistol and aimed it at shadows that suddenly seemed too deep, too hungry.
"Who speaks?" she demanded. "A friend, the voice purred, an ally to those who seek power without the chains of false emperors. I speak to Lord Vader, who knows the truth, that strength is the only law that matters, that mercy is weakness, that the strong devour the weak. Vader felt the presence then, not in the physical world, but in the warp. A consciousness vast and alien pressed against his mind, probing for weaknesses, testing his defenses. It felt like the dark side, but twisted, sentient, malevolent in a way that made even Palpatine's corruption seem clean by comparison. "I am Tzinch," the voice whispered, and now Vader saw it, a flicker of impossible colors at the edge of his vision, shapes that hurt to perceive. The changer of ways, the great schemer. "I have watched you, Darth Vader. I have seen your pain, your rage, your ambition. You are trapped in a universe not your own, surrounded by fools who worship a corpse on a throne. But I offer you a choice." The temperature in the repair bay dropped 10 degrees. Frost formed on metal surfaces. The servo skulls fell from the air, their systems overloaded by proximity to something that should not exist in real space. "Serve me," Tzinch whispered, "and I will give you everything. Power beyond measure, knowledge of this reality and how to bend it. A path home if you desire it, or a new empire built on the ashes of the Imperium. All I require is your oath, your soul, your eternal service." Inquisitor Covenant was shouting orders, calling for psychers, for Calexis assassins, for anything that could sever the demonic connection. But her voice seemed distant, muffled, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Vader stood at the center of the manifestation, feeling the warp presence pressing against his consciousness like deep ocean pressure. He thought of Palpatine's seduction on Coruscant, the promises of power and salvation. He thought of Padme, of what he had sacrificed to save her. He thought of the chains he had worn, first as a slave, then as a Jedi, and finally as a Sith. "No," Vader said simply. The presence recoiled, and for a moment Vader felt something like surprise emanating from the warp entity. "No!" Tzinch's voice had lost its seductive purr, replaced with something harder, more curious. "You refuse me, you who have fallen so far, you who murdered children and betrayed everything you claimed to love? You dare reject the architect of fate?" "I do not serve," Vader said, his voice absolute. "Not you, not the Imperium, not anyone. I am Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, and I bow to no one." The temperature plummeted further. The walls of the repair bay began to crack, ice spreading like crystalline cancer across adamantium and stone. And in those cracks, Vader saw them, daemons, pressing against the membrane between real space and the warp, clawing to break through. "Then you will die," Tzinch hissed, "alone, powerless, forgotten in a universe that does not even know your name." "Perhaps," Vader acknowledged, "but I will die free." The presence withdrew with a scream that shattered glass and drove lesser tech priests to their knees, bleeding from every augmetic orifice. The temperature stabilized. The walls of the repair bay sealed. The servo skulls crashed to the floor, lifeless. Silence returned. Shaken, broken silence. Inquisitor Covenant lowered her bolt pistol slowly, staring at Vader with something between horror and respect. "You refused chaos," she said, disbelief coloring her words.
You looked into the eyes of a daemon god and said no. I have refused darker temptations, Vador replied. His breathing was steady now, mechanical rhythm unbroken. Your chaos gods are not so different from the Sith. They promise power. They demand submission. I have learned where such promises lead. Covenant holstered her weapon. Then perhaps you are not the enemy I believed you to be. I am not your enemy, Vador agreed. But I am not your servant either. I will leave this world, Inquisitor, whether with your cooperation or over your corpse is your choice. Covenant studied him for a long moment. Then, impossibly, she smiled, a twisted expression on her scarred face. There is a third option, an alliance, temporary, mutually beneficial. Explain. You need a ship, navigation data, resources. I need, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Someone who is not bound by imperial doctrine. Someone who can operate outside our laws when necessary. Someone who has proven themselves immune to chaos corruption. You want an assassin. I want a weapon, Covenant corrected. One I can aim at the enemies of mankind. In exchange, you get your freedom, your ship, and the knowledge you need to survive in this galaxy. And perhaps one day, the means to return home. Vador considered this. He had no love for the Imperium, but he needed resources. And Covenant was offering exactly what he required, with the added benefit of independence. I will not serve your Emperor, Vador said. I'm not asking you to, Covenant replied. I'm asking you to kill in his name. There is a difference. The Dark Lord extended his hand. The Inquisitor clasped it. And in that moment, an alliance was born, forged not in faith or loyalty, but in the coldest of calculations. Two predators recognizing in each other a useful tool. It would not last forever, but for now, it would suffice.
The Mechanicus warship Iron Doctrine hung in the void above Metallica 7, like a Gothic cathedral cast in adamantium and spite. 3 kilometers from prow to stern, bristling with lance batteries and torpedo tubes, it was a monument to the Imperium's fusion of faith and firepower. Within its armored hull, 10,000 souls labored in service to the machine god, tech priests, servitors, skiteri, and crew whose lives were measured in the ship's operational capacity rather than their own mortal concerns. Darth Vader stood on the command deck, his black armor stark against the red-robed masses that surrounded him. Inquisitor Covenant had secured him passage aboard the Iron Doctrine under the pretense of special consultation. The ship's captain, a Magos captain named Thelonious 98, had not questioned the Inquisition's authority. No one questioned the Inquisition. But they watched. Every servo skull, every surveillance auger, and every hidden picked recorder tracked Vader's movements. He was a curiosity, a threat, an anomaly that did not fit into the Imperium's carefully categorized universe. We translate to the warp in 30 minutes, Thelonious 98 announced, his vocoded voice echoing across the bridge. His face was more metal than flesh, with 4 optical implants arranged in a geometric pattern across his skull. All personnel to communion stations. The Geller field will activate at T-5 minutes. Non-essential crew to stasis. Vader observed the preparations with tactical precision. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, but he noted the rituals, the prayers whispered over control consoles, the incense burned before activation of critical systems, the way tech priests prostrated themselves before the ship's machine spirit shrine. They treated their technology as divine rather than mechanical. Wasteful, superstitious, and yet he had to admit, effective. The ship functioned. "You seem troubled, Lord Vader," came a voice beside him. Vader turned to find Magos biologist Septimus Kane, his mechanodendrites coiled like serpents around his shoulders. The tech priest had requested assignment to the Iron Doctrine, specifically to continue studying Vader's heretical physiology. "I am calculating variables," Vader replied. "This warp travel you describe, you navigate through a dimension of hostile consciousness. The risk parameters are unacceptable." "Yet we have no choice," Septimus Kane said. "Real space travel would take millennia to cross the distances between stars. The warp is dangerous, yes, but it is necessary. The Emperor's light guides us through the darkness." Vader had reviewed the briefing materials Covenant provided. The warp was not like hyperspace. It was not a parallel dimension of predictable physics. It was chaos incarnate, a realm where time meant nothing, and demons prowled for souls to devour. Ships that entered the warp without Geller fields were found centuries later, their crews transformed into screaming flesh sculptures, or worse. "Your navigator, the mutant with the third eye, he guides the ship through this chaos." "Navigator Primus Kellion," Septimus Kane confirmed. "He perceives the Astronomicon, the Emperor's psychic beacon, and charts our course by its light. Without him, we would be lost. With him, we merely risk damnation." Comforting. The Magos' optical arrays brightened with what might have been amusement. "You fear the warp?" "I respect dangerous environments," Vader corrected. "Fear is counterproductive, but caution is wisdom." "Then you are wiser than most," Septimus Kane said. "Many who first encounter the warp either deny its danger or succumb to terror. You do neither. Curious."
The deck shuddered as the ship's warp drives began their activation sequence. Reality itself seemed to strain at the edges of Vader's perception. He felt the force twisting, contaminated by proximity to something profoundly wrong. The warp was not the dark side. It was something else, something that existed outside the natural order of things. "Geller field activation in 3, 2, 1. The world lurched. Vader's senses exploded with input that should not exist. Colors that had no names, sounds that conveyed emotion rather than information. The Force screamed, and for the first time since arriving in this universe, he felt genuine disorientation. The ship was moving, but not through space. It was sliding sideways through reality itself, cutting through the membrane between the material and the immaterial. "Translation complete," Thelonious 98 announced. "Geller field integrity at 97%. All systems nominal. Navigator Kellion reports clear passage to..." The navigator's voice cut through the Vox network, high and panicked. "Captain, warp disturbance! Something is following us! Something massive!" Every alarm on the bridge began screaming simultaneously. Vader moved to the observation viewport and saw it. A tear in reality itself, bleeding impossible colors into the warp.
From that wound emerged something that defied description. It was ship-shaped, but wrong. Its hull seemed to be made of screaming faces, its engines trailing flames that burned with agony rather than heat. Chains the size of city blocks dragged behind it, and on those chains were bound things that once were human. Chaos Warship, Lord-class cruiser configuration, designation Eternal Torment, known vessel of the Black Legion. Thelonious 98's mechadendrites spasmed. Impossible. We are in warp transit. They cannot intercept us unless they were... Waiting, Vader finished coldly. This was an ambush. The Eternal Torment opened fire, not with conventional weapons, but with something far worse. Warp energy lanced across the void between ships, striking the Iron Doctrine's Geller field and causing it to flicker like a dying candle. Where the field weakened, reality bled through. Crew members near the impact points began screaming as their flesh bubbled and transformed. "Geller field integrity compromised," someone shouted. "Sections D17 through D23 reporting demonic manifestation." "Seal those sections," Thelonious 98 commanded. "Vent them to the warp if necessary. All combat stations activate. Return fire." The Iron Doctrine responded with a broadside of lance batteries and macro cannons. But in the warp, conventional physics were merely suggestions. The shots curved, twisted, some transforming into flocks of screaming birds before reaching their target. The Eternal Torment absorbed the rest, its hull pulsing as if breathing. "This is ineffective," Vader observed. "Your weapons cannot function properly in this environment." "Do you have a better solution?" Thelonious 98 demanded, his mechanical calm cracking.
Vader considered. He was no longer in his universe. His understanding of physics, of tactics, of warfare, all of it was predicated on rules that no longer applied. But warfare was universal, and the principles of combat remained. Identify the enemy's weakness and exploit it. "Your Geller field," Vader said. "It protects the ship from the warp's influence. What would happen if you collapsed it deliberately?" Every head on the bridge turned toward him. Septimus Kane's optical arrays dimmed in horror. "That would be suicide," Thelonious 98 said. "The warp would flood the ship. Daemons would manifest throughout the vessel. We would all be dead or damned." Vader finished. "Unless you collapsed the field in a directed manner. A pulse, brief, controlled, aimed at the enemy vessel." Septimus Kane's mechadendrites began calculating. A weaponized Geller field disruption. The theory is heretical, but theoretically functional. If we could modulate the field's harmonics, create a cascading collapse that propagates outward rather than inward, you would hit them with concentrated warp energy, turn their own environment against them. They expect you to hide behind your field. Instead, you attack with its absence. Thelonious 98's optical implants flickered through rapid calculations. The risk is extreme. If the field fails to reinitialize, we are lost. If the pulse is not directional, we destroy ourselves. If you do nothing, that ship will tear you apart," Vader interrupted. "Calculate your odds, then decide if you prefer certain death or uncertain survival." Another impact rocked the ship. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the depths, screaming intensified as reality continued to fracture.
Thelonious 98 made his decision. Septimus Cain, you have 5 minutes to reprogram the Geller field generators. All tech priests to engineering. I want every available cogitator processing the modulation algorithms. This is madness, Septimus Cain said, but his mechadendrites were already moving, interfacing with the ship's data networks. It is necessity, Vader replied.
4 minutes later, the modifications were complete, crude, rushed, held together by prayer and desperation, but functional. Target lock acquired, the Master of Gunnery reported. The Eternal Torment is closing for boarding actions. Range 12,000 kilometers and decreasing. Geller field weapon armed, Septimus Cain announced. May the Omnissiah have mercy on our souls. Fire, Thelonious 98 commanded. The Geller field collapsed. For 3 seconds, an eternity in warp time, the Iron Doctrine was naked to the immaterium. Vader felt reality dissolve around him. The Force vanished, replaced by something infinitely worse. He saw daemons pressing against the hull, saw the dead crew members rising with eyes full of malice, saw the walls bleeding and the floor becoming liquid chaos. But the field did not collapse inward. It projected outward, a wave of weaponized reality disruption that crossed the void between ships at thought speed. The Eternal Torment took the blast directly. Its Geller field shattered, and unlike the Iron Doctrine, it had no protection, no fail-safe. The Chaos ship's hull cracked like an egg, and the warp flooded in. But so did something else. The ship's own daemons, its bound entities, the corrupted souls that powered its systems. Without the field to contain them, they turned on their masters. Vader watched through the viewport as the Eternal Torment tore itself apart from within. Tentacles erupted from its gun decks. Its engines exploded into flowers of crystallized screaming. The ship that had hunted them dissolved into component nightmares and scattered across the warp like ashes in a storm. The Iron Doctrine's Geller field reinitializing was the most beautiful sound Vader had ever heard. Field integrity restored, Septimus Cain reported, his voice shaking. All sections secure, demonic manifestations contained or eliminated. We survived. Silence filled the bridge, silence and the sound of Vader's mechanical breathing. Thelonious 98 turned to face him. That was the most reckless tactical decision I have ever witnessed. It violated 17 protocols of the Navis Nobilitae, 3 Mechanicus sacred doctrines, and possibly the laws of physics themselves. Vader inclined his head slightly. Did it work? Yes. Then it was not reckless. It was effective. The Magus captain's optical arrays focused on Vader with new intensity. You are either a tactical genius or suicidally insane. The distinction, Vader replied, is largely academic. Septimus Cain approached, his mechadendrites still trembling from the experience. Lord Vader, what you suggested, such weaponization of sacred technology, it borders on tech heresy of the highest order. And yet you live, Vader observed. Your crew lives. Your ship lives. Is not survival the highest sacred duty? The Magus had no response to that. Thelonious 98 turned back to his command throne. Navigator Kellyan, resume course to our destination. I want us out of the warp as soon as real space proximity allows. And someone send word to Inquisitor Covenant. Tell her that her special consultant just saved this ship through methods that will require significant penance rituals. And perhaps,
Septimus Kane added quietly, his optical arrays fixed on Vader. Perhaps methods that will revolutionize naval warfare forever. Vader said nothing. He simply stood at the viewport, watching the warp's impossible colors flow past the ship's hull. He had survived his first journey through this hostile dimension. He had adapted, improvised, conquered. But he had also seen the true horror of this universe. The warp was not merely dangerous, it was actively malevolent. And it knew his name. Tinch's words echoed in his mind. You will die alone, powerless, forgotten. Perhaps, but not today. Today, Darth Vader had proven something crucial. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, even a Dark Lord from another reality could make the Imperium's enemies fear the void. And fear, Vader knew, was the beginning of power.
The Iron Doctrine emerged from the warp 3 days later above a world called Obscurus Tertius, a hive world wrapped in industrial smog and desperation. Vader stood in the ship's briefing chamber, surrounded by hololithic projections of a city-sized structure that descended into the planet's crust like a dagger into flesh. Inquisitor Covenant's image flickered beside him, transmitted across light years through astropathic relay and Vox encryption. "This is your target," Covenant said, gesturing to the hololithic spire. "Hive Primus, population 17 million. Estimated Chaos Cult infiltration 43%. The planetary governor has lost control. The Astra Militarum garrison has been corrupted, and the cult's leader is a psyker of significant power, a man calling himself the Prophet of Change." Vader studied the tactical display with professional detachment. The hive was a nightmare of urban warfare. Vertical cityscapes stacked atop each other, maze-like underhives where law enforcement feared to tread, and a ruling elite so insulated from the masses below that they had failed to notice their world rotting from within. "What is the objective?" Vader asked. "Decapitation strike. Kill the Prophet. His death will shatter the cult's cohesion long enough for Imperial reinforcements to arrive and purge the infestation. The alternative is exterminatus, orbital bombardment that will sterilize the planet and kill 17 million souls. And you believe one man can accomplish what your armies cannot?" Covenant's scarred face twisted into something approximating a smile. "I believe one man who is not bound by Imperial doctrine, who has proven himself resistant to Chaos corruption, and who just destroyed a Chaos warship through sheer audacity, might succeed where conventional forces would fail. Consider this your payment for the repairs, Lord Vader, and your test. To prove you are what you claim, a weapon, not a threat. Kill the Prophet. Save 17 million lives, and I will provide you with everything I promised. A ship of your own, navigation charts, and the freedom to chart your own course through this galaxy." Vader considered the offer. He had no particular affection for the Imperium's masses. Their lives meant nothing to him. But Covenant was offering him exactly what he needed: independence. And the tactical challenge was intriguing. He had not fought in true urban combat since the Clone Wars. The prospect of testing himself against this universe's threats held a certain appeal. "I will require operational autonomy," Vader said. "No interference, no oversight. I operate alone." "Agreed. But Lord Vader," Covenant leaned forward, her augmetic eye glowing, "the Prophet is not merely a psyker. He is a conduit for Teach, the same Chaos God who attempted to corrupt you. The warp will be strong around him. Your resistance will be tested again." "I have made my choice," Vader replied coldly. "The Chaos Gods will find me
uncooperative. Covenant nodded. Then the Emperor protects, or at least, he will not hinder you. You deploy in 2 hours. The hololithic image dissolved, leaving Vader alone with Septimus Cain and Thelionius 98. I have prepared equipment for your insertion, Septimus Cain said, gesturing to a nearby table where Imperial gear lay arranged. Vox communicator, Auspex scanner, frag grenades, crack charges, standard inquisitorial loadout. Vader examined the equipment with disdain. Unnecessary. I have everything I require. You cannot assault a hive of 17 million with only your abilities, Thelionius 98 objected. You will need support, weaponry, intelligence. I have faced worse odds with less, Vader replied. He activated his lightsaber, and the crimson blade hummed to life, casting red light across the chamber. This is the only weapon I require. Septimus Cain's mechadendrites recoiled slightly. That blade, it cuts through adamantium as if it were flesh. What is its power source? A kyber crystal. Focused energy contained within a magnetic field. The technology is beyond your current understanding.
All technology can be understood, Septimus Cain countered. All mysteries can be solved. That is the doctrine of the Omnissiah. Then perhaps your doctrine is incomplete, Vader said, deactivating the blade. Some knowledge must be earned through experience rather than dogma. 2 hours later, Vader descended through Obscurus Tertius's poisoned atmosphere in a Valkyrie assault carrier. The pilot, an Imperial Navy veteran with 3 augmatic limbs and burn scars covering half her face, maintained professional silence as they dropped through clouds of industrial waste and toxic precipitation. Landing zone ahead, Upper Hive Commercial District 773. As requested, isolated, minimal civilian presence, but, Lord Vader, be advised, the lower you descend, the worse it gets. The Underhive is where the cult has its strongest presence, and they'll know you're coming. Let them know, Vader replied. The Valkyrie touched down on a landing platform that jutted from the Hive City like a broken bone. Vader descended the ramp, his boots clanging against corroded metal. The pilot saluted, a gesture he did not return, and then the carrier lifted off, vanishing into the smog. Vader was alone. The Hive stretched around him in all directions, a vertical city of rusted metal, crumbling rockcrete, and desperation. Walkways crossed between spires hundreds of meters above the ground. Below, the Underhive descended into darkness where even the sun's feeble light could not penetrate. The air stank of chemicals, decay, and human suffering compressed into every breath. He reached out with the Force, testing the environment. Immediately, he felt the contamination, the warp's influence seeping through reality like poison through water. But beneath that corruption, he felt something else. Fear, anger, desperation. The emotional resonance of 17 million souls trapped in a nightmare of urban decay and cosmic horror. And below, deeper in the Hive's depths, he felt the Prophet, a psychic beacon radiating power and madness in equal measure.
The Prophet foresaw your coming, one screamed, raising a weapon that appeared to be a lasgun fused with living tissue. The Changer of Ways knows all. You cannot stop what is written. Vader ignited his lightsaber. The cultists opened fire. Vader deflected the shots with contemptuous ease, the Force guiding his blade through deflection angles that sent lasbolts back toward their sources. 3 cultists died instantly. The rest charged. A tentacled mutant lunged, its limb extending impossibly far. Vader severed it mid-strike,
then followed through with a horizontal cut that bisected the creature at the waist. A cultist with bone blades growing from her forearms attacked from the left. Vader caught her with the force, lifted her 3 meters into the air, and slammed her into the rockcrete wall hard enough to leave a crater. The fight lasted 37 seconds. When it was over, Vader stood among the corpses, his lightsaber humming softly. His breathing remained steady, mechanical, unchanged. He had killed without effort, without emotion, without hesitation. This was familiar. This was war. And war, at least, was a constant across realities. He continued his descent. The lower hive was worse. Here the Imperium's infrastructure had collapsed entirely. Gang warfare raged between cult factions and holdout Imperial loyalists. Bodies hung from chains, left to rot as warnings. Children with mutations begged in the streets, their parents having abandoned them to their fates. And everywhere, Vader felt the warp's presence growing stronger. He reached the Underhive 3 hours after insertion. Here, darkness was absolute. The only light came from burning promethium barrels and bioluminescent fungi that grew in toxic pools. The air was thick enough to chew, laden with industrial runoff and human waste. The inhabitants were more mutant than human, their bodies twisted by generations of exposure to radiation, chemicals, and the warp's corrupting influence. And here at last, Vader found the Prophet's Temple. It had been a water reclamation facility once, a massive structure that processed the hive's sewage and converted it into something approaching potability. Now it was a monument to chaos. The walls were covered in ever-changing runes that hurt to perceive. The pipes had been reshaped into impossible geometries, and from within came the sound of chanting. Thousands of voices speaking in unison, their words forming patterns that bypassed language and spoke directly to the hindbrain. Vader approached the entrance, and the cultists guarding it did not attack. They simply watched, their eyes glowing with unnatural light, smiling with mouths that contained too many teeth. "The Prophet awaits you, Lord Vader. He has seen your coming in the threads of fate. He has prepared a welcome." Vader crushed the cultist's windpipe with a thought and entered the temple. Inside, reality was negotiable. The floor was sometimes solid, sometimes liquid. The walls breathed. The ceiling was a window into the warp itself, impossible colors swirling in patterns that suggested intelligence. Cultists lined the walls, but they did not move. They simply watched, their mutations so extensive that Vader could barely recognize them as human. At the chamber center stood the Prophet. He had been human once. Now he was something else. 3 meters tall, his flesh constantly shifting between forms, his eyes burning with the light of another dimension. 9 arms extended from his torso, each one ending in a different appendage. Claws, tentacles, human hands, crystalline blades. His voice, when he spoke, echoed with the power of the warp itself.
"Darth Vader," the Prophet said, and his words carried weight that made reality shudder. "The Dark Lord from beyond the stars, the man who refused the gifts of Tzeentch. You are either the bravest soul I have ever encountered or the most foolish." Vader ignited his lightsaber. "I am neither brave nor foolish. I am merely determined." The Prophet laughed, and the sound was like breaking glass mixed with screaming. Determined. Yes, I see it now. You seek freedom, independence, power without chains. But you do not understand, Lord Vader. In this universe, there are no free men. There are only those who serve the Corpse Emperor and those who serve the true powers. Then I will be the first exception. There are no exceptions, the prophet roared, and the warp surged. Daemons began manifesting around the temple, pink horrors, cackling entities of flame and malice. Tzeentch has shown me your fate. You will serve him or you will die. There is no third path. Vader raised his free hand, and the Force answered. Not cleanly, not purely, but it answered. He seized the merest daemon with telekinetic force and crushed it, banishing it back to the warp in a shower of sparks and screaming. I have spent my entire life proving that fate is not absolute. I will not stop now. The prophet spread his 9 arms, and reality itself began to tear. Then come, Dark Lord, let us see if your determination can withstand the full power of chaos. The battle began in earnest. Daemons poured through the tears in reality. The prophet unleashed warp fire that burned hotter than any star. The cultists surged forward with suicidal devotion. And at the center of it all, Darth Vader fought with the cold precision of a weapon forged in the fires of a different hell. His lightsaber carved through daemons, sending them shrieking back to the immaterium. His force powers deflected warp energy, though each deflection cost him more than it should. His tactical genius allowed him to predict the prophet's attacks, to counter the madness with calculated violence. But the prophet was not merely powerful. He was a conduit for something infinite. And as the battle raged, Vader realized the terrible truth. He could not win this fight through strength alone. The prophet drew power directly from the warp. Every daemon destroyed was replaced, every wound healed, every attack deflected only delayed the inevitable. Vader needed a different strategy. He stopped attacking. Instead, he began to move, circling, dodging, creating distance. The prophet pursued, his 9 arms lashing out, his voice booming with laughter and prophecy. But Vader was not retreating, he was positioning. And when he reached the exact center of the chamber, directly beneath the tear in reality that showed the warp beyond, Vader struck, not at the prophet, but at the temple itself. His lightsaber plunged into the floor, and the Force surged through it, not to destroy, but to disrupt. The temple was not merely a building, it was a ritual site, a carefully constructed node where the warp and real space intersected. And like all rituals, it depended on balance. Vader shattered that balance. The temple's foundations cracked, the ever-changing runes flickered and died. The tear in reality above convulsed, and instead of pouring daemons into the world, it began to pull them back in. The prophet's laugh turned to scream. "No! What have you done?" "I ended your prophecy," Vader replied coldly. The temple collapsed, not physically, but metaphysically. The warp connection severed, the daemons banished, the cultists' minds released from the prophet's control all at once. Without the warp sustaining him, the prophet's body began to tear itself apart, his mutations consuming him from within.
"This is not over," the prophet shrieked as his flesh dissolved. "Zinj will not be denied. You cannot escape fate. Watch me." And then, with a final pulse of the Force, he brought the entire structure down.
The ruins of the Prophet's temple burned for 3 days. Darth Vader stood at the extraction point on the upper hive, watching the distant flames through the toxic smog. Below, Imperial forces had finally moved in. Astra Militarum regiments, supported by Adeptus Sororitas battle sisters, purging the remaining cult cells with flamer and bolt round. The Prophet's death had shattered the cultists' unity, just as Inquisitor Covenant had predicted. Without their leader's psychic influence, they were merely frightened, mutated humans facing the full wrath of the Imperium's war machine. 17 million souls would live, for now. In the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, that passed for victory. The Valkyrie descended through the smog, and Vader boarded without ceremony. The pilot, the same veteran who had dropped him 3 days ago, studied him with undisguised curiosity. "Did you do it?" she asked, as the carrier lifted off. "Did you kill the Prophet?" "Yes," Vader replied, simply. "Huh. The Vox networks are calling it a miracle, the God Emperor's intervention. They're saying a saint descended from the heavens to save Obscurus Tertius." Vader's breathing continued its mechanical rhythm, the only response he offered. "But you're no saint, Lord Vader," the pilot continued, glancing back at him. "Saints don't look like you, don't sound like you. So what are you, Lord Vader?" "I am what necessity demands, nothing more," Vader said after a moment. The pilot nodded slowly. "In the 41st millennium, I suppose that's the only answer that matters."
They reached orbit 15 minutes later. The Iron Doctrine waited, and beyond it, something new. A light cruiser of Mechanicus design, smaller than the Iron Doctrine, but sleek, deadly, and entirely unmanned. Its hull was unmarked, its identification code scrubbed from Imperial records. A ghost ship. Inquisitor Covenant's face appeared on the Valkyrie's hololith display. "Lord Vader, as promised, your ship, the Executor's Will, refitted with technology from your armor's specifications where possible. Crew positions replaced with servitors and cogitators. It will not match what you commanded in your own galaxy, but it will suffice for one who operates alone." Vader studied the vessel through the viewport. It was smaller than even a corvette by Imperial standards, but it was his, independent, free. "Navigation charts?" he asked. "Loaded into the ship's cogitator banks. Star charts for 17 sectors, trade routes, warp current maps, and one other thing." Inquisitor Covenant's expression softened fractionally. "I've included coordinates for several locations where dimensional anomalies have been recorded, places where reality is thin. If there is a way back to your universe, Lord Vader, you might find clues there." Vader inclined his head slightly, the closest thing to gratitude he would offer. "Our agreement is fulfilled." "Almost." Covenant leaned forward. "You have proven yourself resistant to chaos, capable, dangerous.
The Inquisition could use someone like you, someone who operates outside imperial doctrine when necessary. This does not have to be our only collaboration. I will consider future offers, but I make no promises of loyalty. I would not believe them if you did. Covenant replied with something approximating a smile. You are what you are, Lord Vader, a weapon, and weapons do not choose their battles, but they can choose their wielders. Remember that. The transmission ended. The Valkyrie docked with the Executor's will, and Vader crossed the umbilical into his new ship. The command deck was sparse, efficient, designed for a crew of one. Hololithic displays showed star charts and sensor readouts. The ship's machine spirit, or what passed for one in this superstitious age, responded to his touch with mechanical obedience.
He stood before the main viewport, looking out at the galaxy that was now his prison and his proving ground. The 41st millennium stretched before him, a universe of endless war, where faith and madness intertwined, where humanity clung to survival through brutality and ignorance, where gods were real and hungry. He thought of the empire he had served, of Palpatine's schemes and Luke's idealism, of Padme, dead by his hand, of the prophecy that had defined his life, the chosen one who would bring balance to the Force. That prophecy belonged to another universe. Here, he was undefined, unwritten, free to forge his own path through a galaxy that did not know his name or care about his destiny. Perhaps that was the greatest gift this terrible universe could offer, the chance to be something other than what fate had demanded. Set course, Vader commanded the ship's cogitator. Independent patrol vector. I will chart our destinations as needed. The Executor's will acknowledged with a burst of binary, its engines igniting with cold blue fire. The ship turned away from Obscurus Tertius, away from the Imperium's watching eyes, toward the infinite darkness between stars. Darth Vader stood alone on the command deck, his breathing the only sound in the silence. He had survived his arrival in this universe. He had resisted chaos. He had forged an uneasy alliance with forces he neither trusted nor respected, and he had proven the fundamental truth that had sustained him since Mustafar. Power was not given, it was taken. And in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, where there was only war, a Dark Lord who understood that truth could carve an empire from the void itself. Behind him, unnoticed in the ship's shadow, the warp stirred. Tzeentch's attention had not wavered. The architect of fate was patient. The Dark Lord would be tested again and again until he broke or transcended or became something this universe had never seen before. But for now, Darth Vader was free, and freedom, he had learned long ago, was the most dangerous weapon of all. The Executor's will activated its warp drives and vanished into the immaterium, carrying its master toward an uncertain future in a galaxy that had known 10,000 years of darkness. In the endless war of the 41st millennium, a new player had entered the game, neither servant of the Emperor nor slave to chaos, neither hero nor villain by this universe's broken definitions, simply a Dark Lord,
independent, unbound, and infinitely dangerous.